My name is Sergei Petrunia. I am a developer at MariaDB project, and I have been spending a lot of time recently of putting MyRocks storage engine into the MariaDB. So naturally, I submitted a talk about this, and now today I'm talking about MyRocks in MariaDB. So before we start talking, a little bit of a background. First, what is MyRocks? How many people in the audience know what MyRocks is? Well, there are still some that don't. So a short walkthrough. So there is a key value store called RocksDB. It's a log-structured key value store. And there is at Facebook, they have developed a MySQL storage engine on top of it and called it MyRocks. It provides SQL level, works just like any other SQL, well, similar to other SQL storage engines. And the difference from, say, in the DB storage engine is that it uses log-structured merge architecture. There were talks describing that at length earlier at this conference, so check out the slides. And it provides better compression, better I/O efficiency. It has write optimizations for bulk loading or not updates not doing reads. And MyRocks is use it and verify it at Facebook. But it has certain barriers to its adoption. The first one is that it is available. There is a source repository at GitHub. It is available there, but it's just source code repository. They don't really make releases. I've heard, I think it was Harrison who stated at this conference that you can see which build they've tried to deploy, but you cannot see whether that attempt was successful. So it's you can grab the latest state of the repository there, but it's not clear whether it was stable at that point. So they don't make any releases, and they don't provide binaries or packages. I have been working with Tree a lot, and my experience, it gives very much like in-house experience. This is still MySQL, but this is a special branch with extra features. You need actually special command line to compile it, to get MyRocks compiled, and appropriate libraries to pick it up. You need special command to run tests, even to make sure that you got something that's reasonably stable. Well, it has some Facebook custom extensions, so some external tools, like say Percona monitoring chokes on it because some of the status variables include numbers, and Percona's monitoring doesn't like that, and or was it not numbers but percent sign? But well, anyway, so it has a lot of custom features, so it may be not entirely suitable for everybody or people who are not Facebook to use it. Although some did. Yeah. So as far as I understand, Facebook maintains its own tree specifically on purpose so that they can move whenever they want with it. So if you want to move wherever they want to move, that's probably fine with you. But if you don't, but in case you don't, you may have encounter different difficulties, and not at the moment when you expect them. So what is MariaDB? How many in the audience know what MariaDB is? Oh, almost everybody. Well, still just to reiterate how we position us here, it is a community-oriented variant of MySQL. We produce releases, binaries, and packages. We are default MySQL in many distributions, in Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora, SUSE. We got into Debian recently. In many cases, a lot of people are actually running MariaDB now, thinking they run MySQL. If you do something like human install MySQL, you get actually MariaDB, at least in Fedora, and I think in other distributions, situation is similar. We also support lots of platforms. We support MD64, 32 bits. We support Power. We support Windows and others. And we generally are targeted towards serving the community, so providing stable regular packages for everybody to use, maintaining compatibility, and so forth. So we are also accept contributions. We have third-party storage engines already in, like Spider, TokuDB, Marunga, and we had other engines as well. We regularly get a Galera cluster from Codership. We also get one-time contributions like on disk data encryption or compressed binary log. Yeah, so generally Maria loves new technologies. Here's a list of things that we got first before MySQL did. So then it would be nice to have MyRocks in MariaDB, because MyRocks provides this new technology at better efficiency, while MariaDB can bring it to wider community and collect and provide input back from the community. And one question I get frequently asked is whether whether we intend to kind of move away from InnoDB to MyRocks in any form. Well, the answer to that is no. InnoDB remains the default storage engine in MariaDB and will remain so. Actually, InnoDB is in active development. In 10.2, we got new features. We ported GIS from 5.7. We got persistent auto increment. As far as I am informed, we got it before. We'll release it as stable before MySQL does it. So InnoDB is a proven LTP engine, and InnoDB has features that are not currently in and are not expected to be in foreseeable future in MyRocks. So it will be both InnoDB and also MyRocks. We do not intend to move from to forcibly move anybody from one engine to the other. We just want to provide another option. So considerations for putting MyRocks into MariaDB. MyRocks has interplay with SQL layer. Here it is displayed as yellow bars. MyRocks storage engine is below. It's using RocksDB, but it has some intersection with some counterparts of storage inside the SQL layer, which is on top. It needs to match it. And to complicate situation further, as I have already mentioned, Facebook's branch of 5.6 has some extra features, and that MariaDB or say other branches of MySQL do not have. So in order to get MyRocks into MariaDB, we need to first uncouple MyRocks from these extra features in Facebook tree, and then couple them with MariaDB's equivalents. Because our goal is to just take MyRocks. We don't want to take any and all Facebook's extensions and put all of that into MariaDB. We just want MyRocks. So that's some amount of work to do. Besides that, there is an issue with merging, because MyRocks development continues at Facebook, and we want to follow it in MariaDB. We don't want to just grab the current MyRocks and then just stick with it. We want to follow MyRocks development with regular merges, and we don't have plans to diverge, so we will be here a lot like Percona server. With respect what Percona server is with respect to Oracle, we will be with MyRocks in MariaDB with respect to MyRocks in upstream. We have set up a process to pull the latest MyRocks from Facebook's tree. It's manual work, still requires manual work to maintain it, but it's now like reasonable amount of work. And we already do it with Galera, TokuDB. Well, I'm not sure how the process is set up as Spider, but generally we are using it to regularly following upstream. So other considerations for inclusion are packages. Need to produce source and binary tar both, dep packages or PM packages and so forth. We need to provide proper dependencies on compression libraries. We need to include MyRocks in a way that doesn't like impose it on the users that do not want it. We need to build on way more platforms and architectures than upstream does, and we need to provide more documentation. Just even for ourselves, but for the community as well. There are some considerations from MariaDB side as well. Getting into MariaDB release, it's generally useful, generally much more easier to get into release that's not yet stable. But on the other hand, we want to get to release which is as stable as possible. Here is the timeline of releases. So if you see that there is there is like 1 year and something from alpha to stable. For 10.0 it was 12 to 13. For 10.1 it was from 14 to 15, and we can't get to 10.1 easily because it has been stable for a while. MariaDB 10.2 is next candidate. It has the first alpha was released in April 2016, so a year ago. RC has been released on February 17th, so it's getting stable really soon now. So that's one option. If we don't get into 10.2, the next train is 10.3. The first alpha has been released just like last week. So if we get into 10.3, we will be in a stable release. Well, Monty says sooner, but history shows it's like approximately a year. So maybe sooner than that, but still. Yep. So it would be really nice to get into the 10.2, and MariaDB has facilities for doing that. It has been developed actually specifically for storage engines. At some point in the past, it's called plugin maturity. Each plugin, not necessarily storage engine, can declare its maturity. It's like could be unknown, experimental, alpha, beta, gamma, stable, and then MySQLD has an option of plugin maturity, and it will not load plugins that are with maturity less than the specified level. And this is how MyRocks get into MariaDB. We are not ready to declare MyRocks in MariaDB mature yet, so we specify it as plugin with maturity alpha, get in, and hope to then catch up and increase the maturity soon. So that way we can get a mature plugin in MariaDB 10.2, which will happen sooner than MariaDB 10.3 stable. So current status. The status is as follows. MariaDB 10.2.5 RC, that was the second release candidate, was released on April 5, and it does include alpha version of the MyRocks plugin. It is packaged there as a loadable plugin, so it's not linked in by default, which is what you get with the Facebook tree. It is a HA-RocksDB SO, and we got it into packages we produce bintar, deb, RPM, Windows 64 zip, and Microsoft installer package. Deb and RPM packages have MyRocks.so and tools in a separate package. We follow the convention that's used by other non-default storage engines. So that way it is easy. We don't impose it on anybody. You need to specifically install it, but that's just one line. Apt-get install MariaDB server RocksDB, or is it MyRocks? Well, either one. Due to limitations that RocksDB imposes on the compiler, it requires very recent compiler and toolchain. It is available on recent versions only. I already got several requests to get it on not so recent versions like CentOS 6, but the last one is 7. But generally, unless there is much demand, we are not going to provide it for older systems, because setting up modern tool chain on an older distro is a lot of work. And if you are trying MyRocks, you are probably looking for high performance. And I've heard at this conference that experience of Facebook guys was that you need a recent kernel and recent distro in order to get the top performance, because MyRocks heavily uses the kernel and file system features. Another important consideration is support for compression libraries. One of the advantages of RocksDB is better data compression, better than InnoDB, and it achieves that by using compression libraries. It supports 6 at the moment: Snappy, zlib, bzip, LZ4, LZ4 high compression, and the newest addition is Z standard. MariaDB bintar package statically, we targeted to have at least one highly performant, at least one library which provides high compression, which is zlib in this case, and at least one library which provides fast compression, which is Snappy. And we got these two, and now MariaDB bintar package statically links with both. So it is self-contained. You don't get into dependency hell. You just grab the bintar and it has everything that you need in it. On the other hand, distributions really dislike when software in them links something in statically, because whenever there is an update for the library, you need to update all of the packages that might be using it. So in order to keep the distributions happy, our deb RPM packages have proper dependencies on libz, on zlib and snappy. Package for that standard is available at least in the latest Ubuntu. I'm not sure about what's the status in Fedora, say, but in that standard we plan to support it on the distributions that already have a stock package for it. Windows packages at the moment include zlib bundled in. I'm not sure if they include LZ4. There has been some back and forth about whether to include it or not. There are no packages for that standard or Snappy on Windows. Their Visual Studio has a kind of its own teeny packaging system which doesn't provide Snappy, but we generally intend to resolve it somehow and provide adequate set of compression libraries on Windows as well. Linking, another consideration is that RocksDB itself is a library, and Debian has actually a package for RocksDB. And I have been asked whether we will depend on that, and the answer to that is no, because MyRocks is tied to RocksDB at specific revision. It is a submodule. So whenever you check out MyRocks at some stage, you get also RocksDB, matching RocksDB version. There is no compatibility guarantees of MyRocks with different RocksDB versions. So because of that, we always compile RocksDB together with MyRocks and linking it statically. So here the bounds between the shapes in the picture denote the dynamic library bounds. MariaDB binary, then there is MyRocks binary, which links these statically in bintar and and depends on a SO file in the packages. Another question that I frequently get is how much MyRocks is different from MyRocks in the upstream is different from MyRocks in MariaDB. Well, current diff is 3,000 lines. Just went through and identified all of the changes. Well, it's limited set of changes, like all pretty well understood. I don't expect it to grow much. There is a bigger difference with tests, but again, these differences are not substantial. So we expect that it reached some near saturation point and will not diverge further. Just whatever has some alternative implementation in MariaDB gets it, and it lives from now on. And but in all other respects, we are able to follow the upstream and just continue merging. So is it ready for use? The components are actually stable. So that Facebook guys tell us that MyRocks and RocksDB, the combination is run at production at Facebook. RocksDB is also, as far as I know, run in many places besides Facebook. MyRocks, not so much. Is there any known uses of MyRocks outside Facebook now?
There is one company, but I'm going to let them speak for them. Mm-hmm. Large web guild. Mm-hmm. So that might as well.
Good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, there is another user already. Yeah, but so two big companies, well, large scale, but probably not very diverse set. Yeah, anyhow, MyRocks and the combination of MyRocks plus RocksDB is proven by use at least two companies. Well, connections with MariaDB are not. And some of them which exist, like marked blue in the picture, I expect them to be stable. But others, which are marked red on the picture, are actually barely working or even we say missing. And certain features still do not work yet. And that's why we still call it alpha. Already working features are SQL features. You can run queries against RocksDB storage engine. You will get correct results. Query optimizer features, they will use the right query plans, produce correct query results. Yes? Well, query plans themselves don't. However, the optimizer in certain cases need to provide some extra information to the storage engine because this is the third item. For example, Bloom filter. For Bloom filter, the optimizer needs to let the storage engine know which ranges are being scanned. MariaDB had no use for it, so they didn't have it. Then Facebook MySQL has one implementation, one way which they provide. We have a different way, which is shared with TokuDB, incidentally, to provide information to the storage engine that storage engine requires in order for Bloom filter to work. There are a couple of other optimizer-related changes where, say, if there are partitioned tables, then RocksDB has certain MyRocks has certain properties that are different from MariaDB. Certain index-only scans may or may not be supported depending on the data type, which this property didn't exist within the DB. Within the DB, index-only scans just work always, irrespective of what data type is using. So there need to be some adjustments to do that, and they were done in a slightly different way between MyRocks, between Facebook's branch and MariaDB. But generally, optimizer is the same. And I know Peter Zaitsev asked this question that since in MyRocks forward index scans are cheaper than reverse index scans, and you can create a reverse ordered index which stored in reverse order physically on disk. Yep.
That's also true for InnoDB. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, InnoDB doesn't have internal reverse ordered physical order, does it?
It doesn't have it as an option. I'm just saying the performance problem is there in InnoDB. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah, but in InnoDB you can't solve it though. If you want a reverse scan within InnoDB, you will have to deal with the fact that it's gonna be slower. But while in MyRocks, if you want to do reverse scans frequently, you can create a reverse ordered column family and have indexes that will be faster there. However, if you happen to have an index in reverse ordered column family and index in forward ordered columm family, then the optimizer doesn't know that one is faster than the other. The choice will be essentially random. This has been discussed, but I don't know. The reply to Peter was that this is of not much practical importance, because when you care about that performance that much, you probably don't have duplicate indexes. You don't have two indexes where one is forward and one is backward. Yes?
We do actually do that at Booking specifically for this, but we also use the ignore index.
Also use, sorry?
Ignore index.
So in that case, there is no issue again. Yeah, but interesting observation. Thanks. Yeah. Already working. We stopped at SQL features and query optimizer, and anything interplaying with that already work, while stuff that interplays with binary log doesn't. I mean, if you start replication, it will work now. You can have slave, you can have master, but it wouldn't be. They probably wouldn't be crash safe, or if you set crash safe options, you wouldn't be efficient. Parallel slave also doesn't work. We're also missing some diagnostic information because Facebook MySQL branch modified this one heavily. They have a lot more diagnostics, including special SQL syntax to get more diagnostics, which we do not have in MariaDB. And I was getting pushback against modifying SQL dialect specifically for one engine. So what are we gonna do now? Our future work is to finish non-working core features. So get it working with binlog, get it work with replication, perhaps get it work with MariaDB's parallel slave. I'll do that as a substantial piece of work. And well, I have learned at this conference that MySQL is working on a different implementation of parallel slave. And since Facebook itself is on a branch of MySQL, they might want to interplay to work with that, while MariaDB's implementation requires certain properties from the storage engine, which we do not get currently from RocksDB per se, and I'm not sure whether we will have enough resources to do that. Well, we fix diagnostic information. We will package MyRocks hot backup. Hot backup works, but it's not in the packages currently. We'll make MyRocks work with other MariaDB features. One thing that we don't know what to do with at the moment is gap lock detector. The issue is that there are differences between in-transaction isolation properties between InnoDB and MyRocks. InnoDB locks gaps between rows, provided the isolation layer is sufficiently high. MyRocks doesn't support gap locks, so there was a feature developed at Facebook to catch gap lock queries. The idea is that you run within InnoDB before migration, enable this logging of queries that rely on gap locks. Then you catch those queries and address them somehow, remove them, or make sure that they're not an issue. And it's done by having global SQL level variables, gap lock rise error, gap lock write lock. And I'm getting pushback when trying to put this feature into MariaDB that like MyRocks should not put its features on the SQL layer. It should be storage engine, should remain inside everything MyRocks should remain inside the storage engine and not put. So there are like we're considering various options to resolve this. Maybe make another kind of a plugin which tracks what rows are being read and pluginize this somehow. But at the moment, this is not implemented, and it might be hard to do it in two.
So are you going to remove the plus transactions read lock? Isn't that the MyISAM thing?
No, but well, if we get another storage engine, which, oops, the plan is such that at the moment it's just gap lock. I mean, it's coded as a gap lock, log detector and logger, and this is useful just for one engine. That's the counter argument. And the current candidate solution is to just make it not only a gap lock feature, gap lock detector, but rather a feature that tracks which rows, which ranges are being scanned with which, and also checks the current isolation level. And then there will be an API, and one implementation will be the gap lock detector, but maybe somebody else will want to track which rows are being read or which ranges are being scanned for other purposes. So that's because at the moment it's really heavily, there is a global variable called like gap lock log somewhere, so it intercepts rows being read, but it is specifically a feature to do just one thing. So if I pluginize it and hide that detail behind an interface, I may have a better chances of putting it into MariaDB as like saying this is one implementation of a generic plugin feature that could be useful for somebody else as well. Another task, this is actually not a plan, but it is in the work, is per engine MySQL slave GTID post tables. MariaDB has a GTID slave post table. It stores the current position of the slave. And the idea is that this table is in InnoDB, so if slave crashes and then recovers, this table is part of recovery, so it has the correct information about where the slave was, where the slave was in applying the changes from the relay log. As far as I understand, it will work with MyRocks now. You can run transactions with MyRocks, but that table will be in InnoDB, so any transaction will be like cross-engine transaction using cross-engine XA, so you will have to pay cost of having any transaction involve two storage engines. And the idea is to create then, the motivation was to have, not to have cross storage engine transactions, but rather have both transactions in InnoDB and MyRocks, and still have crash save slave doing that. So you could have a table, move a table into MyRocks, get an InnoDB table on a slave, move it into MyRocks, and then continue running in a crash safe way. And that way you gradually migrate to MyRocks on the slave, table by table. The idea is that to have this GTID slave pose multiple tables, one in each engine, and then on recovery we'll just look which was the latest applied binlock event into each engine and compute the maximum, and that will be globally the latest applied event. While in normal operation, only if a query just involves, or transaction involves only one engine, it will only use that engine and will not use another one just to update this table. So that's the idea. Efficient crash save slave, which is when using multiple storage engines. A patch is available for this one from Christian Nielsen, and currently it's on our to-do at MariaDB to review it patch. We are not sure which version it's getting into, whether we will manage to put it into 10.2, but it's coming either into 10.2 or into 10.3. So conclusions, MyRocks is available in MariaDB 10.2 as an available, but it is an alpha maturity plugin there. So not a lot of features work, like packages. There are binaries, generic SQL use works. Interplay between storage engine and the binary log is in progress still and not expected to work at the moment. We will hope to fix and improve this situation soon. We'll continue to merge from upstream, and we've got the 10.2 train. So, thank you. We have, yes?
I know there's been precedence for this before in the MariaDB space. Can we just claim the InnoDB engine name? We say that we're dropping compatible?
You mean?
Can we claim drop-in compatibility so when someone says engine equals InnoDB, they get a MyRocks engine?
Well, there is support.
If we're drop-in compatible?
Well,
So I think that on this file format would be important to locate, so I think that our answer seriously would be no to that.
well, but if you don't support gap logs, so if you do support, if you help us to support all of the features that we support within the DB, then we could probably publish the claim. But you will still require, drop-in was in the sense that you take the MySQL data directory, at least maybe not from the current MySQL release, but from the previous one, and then you start the server and it works. This is apparently doesn't make sense for your case because, well, you don't start in the data directory, do you? But if there is a migration process, so I wouldn't call it drop-in because if you drop another binary, it wouldn't work. But somehow, if...
I think you could probably construct a marketing buzzwordy phrase that would be close enough and be true. Okay. I think if you work on that, you could probably do that.
Help us to get parallel slave running and all other features. We need parallel slave and MariaDB's GTID.
Is that marketing buzzwordy enough?
Yeah. So I'm also required to put up this slide, and we could continue discussing and have questions. Yes? Oh, I am not aware of such cases. Maybe guys running in production.
The records and range estimate
One source of imprecision is that there are tombstones, and we don't really know.
And then,
Oh, another thing that will affect the query plan is that MyRocks doesn't support index only for some plans. So that will be the source of the difference. But other than that, yeah, there is no question of getting precisely the same query plans. Just my intent was to say that optimizer works like roughly the same for these two engines without any special parts developed for one or the other.
How is that implemented with respect to this index only stack? Because remember with like MariaDB, it's just a static flag that says, with most of the it says you support it or you do not support it. But in this case, do you dynamically ask RocksDB whether it's supported or not?
No, well, with RocksDB, it has this property that index-only scans is supported are supported only for certain kind of data types. For most data types they are, but for UTF-8 generic CI they are not, because they need to get keys mem-comparable, which they are able to do, but then it's really hard to restore the key from its mem-comparable form. It's actually doable. We'll be able to achieve it if there is demand, but it's labor-intensive thing to restore. Yeah. So on table, when the table is open, yet we have an extra step where the storage engine informs the SQL layer about which indexes in this table will support do support index only. Because before SQL layer just ask the storage engine before opening the table, just in general, do you support index-only scans at all? While now the answer to this question, it depends. So it gets them on table open. No, the issue with the binary lock is that primarily it is the issue of synchronization. There is this feature called group commit. When commits happen, they need to happen in the same order, and the binary lock and the storage engine need to be synchronized. Well, an easy way to just commit one by one, but that's slow, or you can commit in groups. And MariaDB had this group commit implementation first, and because of that, the API is slightly different. And then they also remember GTIDs, so when restoring the slave, it can print at which GTID is on. This is something that Facebook's toolset uses somehow. And MariaDB's GTIDs are different, so it's, again, not... Well, conceptually, it's similar, but code-wise, there are changes to achieve that. So that's why that stuff that doesn't work yet. It should be doable. Doesn't require any research or science to implement, but just something we haven't managed to do yet.
So basically the difference between MySQL 5.6 and MariaDB.
Yep. For parallel slave, it needs high priority. It needs to be able to, when two transactions collide, pick one which to abort. And RocksDB can't. Again, I haven't implemented it at MyRocks, and RocksDB doesn't provide this feature to abort. To be able to, for the user to make a choice which one of them to abort. That's like the most apparent thing. There may be some other things under the hood, but this is the biggest. That's why it doesn't. Another possible thing there is a thing called read-free replication slave, which was initially developed at Toku, because they also have these updates where they can write without reading and have the changes actually apply later on. Well, this assumes that you don't catch unique or primary key violations that way, but if your slave is in sync, it will remain in sync. There is an API for that. I think we haven't got it in MariaDB. It is in Percona server from where Facebook branch got it. It's not in MySQL, in Oracle's MySQL. And again, we need to put that API into MariaDB. It's not complex to do. It's fairly simple. Just enable this thing on the slave. And Facebook also has this feature. If the slave is behind this, more than a certain threshold, I think I don't remember whether they measure it in seconds or in number of bin lock or in size of bin lock. If it is sufficiently behind, it turns this unsafe but faster application mode. This feature is not in Percona server, so again, we need to decide whether to port it or not port it, and it might be difficult to get it into 10.2 because 10.2 will be stable soon, and then this feature will have to wait until 10.3, but hopefully it's not the most critical MyRocks feature. Yeah. Any other questions? So, if there aren't any, let's wrap it up. I'll be still around. Otherwise, you can be first to get to lunch.